Imagine this. A mother and daughter take a lavish trip to Bali. It's supposed to be a final, desperate attempt to heal a relationship that's been fractured for years. A vacation in paradise, right? A chance to finally reconnect. But it would end in a betrayal so horrific, it's almost impossible to even comprehend.
The mystery at the heart of this is just as chilling as it is simple. Two people check into a luxury hotel, but only one checks out. So what on earth happened inside that resort that led to one of the most shocking crimes of the decade?
So we're actually going to start this story at the end, with the discovery. This is the exact moment when that whole facade of a perfect vacation just crumbles, revealing something truly monstrous hiding just beneath the surface in a Bali hotel lobby.
You know, this whole thing unraveled because of a few small but really unsettling details. First, you've got Nancy and her boyfriend Ray at the front desk ready to leave, but her mother, Rebecca, is nowhere in sight. Then, the receptionist Anna, she notices this strange smell. Her gut just tells her something is deeply, deeply wrong, so she calls security. And when they open that suitcase, well, the terrible truth is right there.
That's it. One body. The body of Rebecca Cooper, crammed into a single suitcase. This wasn't some crime of passion that just spiraled out of control. No, this was cold, this was calculated, and it was all about concealment.
But to really get how things got to this point, we have to rewind. We've got to look at the years of resentment that were just simmering inside this family, long before they ever even thought about going to Bali.
The family dynamic was pretty clear from early on. Rebecca was the provider, super driven, a successful businesswoman, always focused on giving her family the best. Andrew, her husband, he was the nurturer, the more emotionally present parent. So when they divorced when Nancy was 15, she didn't really see the nuances. All she saw was that her dad was gone, and she put all the blame on the one person left, her mom.
And that blame, it just sent her into a spiral. It started with defiance, which turned into rebellion. She started skipping school, lying all the time. Pretty soon, that escalated to stealing money right out of her mom's purse. And every time Rebecca tried to reach out to help, it just seemed to make the wall between them even higher. It was this awful, vicious cycle that neither of them knew how to break.
And that is what brings us to the trip itself. For Rebecca, Bali was this huge beacon of hope. But for Nancy, it was the perfect cover for a sinister plot that was already well underway.
And this is the part that's just so heartbreaking. For Rebecca, this trip meant everything. It was a final, good-faith effort to fix years of damage, to try and find that little girl she used to know. She really, truly believed that the beautiful beaches of Bali could help them heal. But while Rebecca was dreaming of healing, this was the reality happening behind her back. Nancy was secretly texting her boyfriend, Ray Jack, a guy her mom absolutely despised, and telling him, "Don't worry, the plan is working perfectly. She'll never suspect a thing." The deception is just chilling. And this plan was meticulous. She secretly used her mom's credit card to fly Ray out there. She booked him his own room at the very same resort. And all the while, she was putting on a show for her mother, smiling for pictures, pretending like they were finally reconnecting.
So this brings us to the night of the murder. A simple argument about money, of all things, would become the final catalyst, the trigger, that set this unthinkable plan into its final, violent motion.
Rebecca noticed it on her banking app, a $500 transfer that she just didn't recognize. And when she confronted Nancy about it, Nancy first tried to deflect, and then she just exploded with rage. She stormed off, slammed the bathroom door, and right then and there sealed her mother's fate. And this is it. Hiding in that bathroom, Nancy sent this 2-word text to Ray, who was waiting somewhere else in the resort. "Do it now." That was the signal, the green light, the absolute point of no return. What happened next was just a coordinated, brutal act. Nancy unlocked the door. Ray slipped inside, armed with a hunting knife. He attacked Rebecca while she was just lying in bed, completely unaware of what was happening. And afterwards, Nancy didn't panic. She didn't call for help. She actively helped wrap her mother's body and clean up the room.
In their minds, it was basically the perfect crime. They really believed they could just pack the body into a suitcase, check out like any other guest, and simply disappear. They were so confident that no one would ever find out.
But they did not get away with it, not even close. Their whole web of lies started to unravel almost immediately, which led to an investigation, their extradition back to the U.S., and a final, really dramatic trial.
Their downfall was swift, and it was digital. As soon as the police got a hold of their phones, the entire story was laid bare. I mean, the text messages gave them a damning minute-by-minute timeline of a premeditated murder. There was just no way to deny what they had done. Back in a U.S. courtroom, it really became a battle of two different stories. The defense tried to paint Nancy as this traumatized victim who was manipulated by an older boyfriend. But the prosecution, they countered with a much darker picture, a cold, calculated mastermind, using those secret texts and stolen money as Exhibit A. And in the end, the jury absolutely agreed with the prosecution. The verdict was decisive. Both Nancy Cooper and Ray Jack were found guilty of first-degree murder. They were both sentenced to life in prison without any possibility of parole. Justice, at least in the eyes of the law, was served.
And that's really the central tragedy of this whole story, isn't it? A trip that was born out of a mother's love, this last-ditch effort to save her daughter, was twisted into the backdrop for her own murder. The irony is just as profound as it is devastating.
Which leaves us with this one last lingering question. This case is about so much more than just a crime. It's about the complete and total destruction of a family. And it forces us to ask, when a bond is broken this violently by the one person who is supposed to love you most, is forgiveness even possible?